Hello guys, it is Lucky8 from Tricorder, here with the first ever Lucky Looks At. So Lucky Looks At is a series where I'll do a quick review on a game, ranging from ones I have hundreds of hours in to ones I just started playing. So this episode, I'll be reviewing Paranautical Activity. So yeah, pretty complicated name. Paranautical Activity is a roguelike first-person shooter, roguelike or rogue-lite, meaning that it has permadeath and randomly generated floors. It's also commonly compared to The Binding of Isaac, being fairly appropriately dubbed The Binding of Isaac first-person shooter. So Paranautical Activity was released on Steam for early access during September 2013, and if you're watching this video when it's released, it's still in early access, and has had frequent updates since then. So now on to phase 2 of the review, the gameplay. So to start, the first thing that really stands out is the graphics and lighting. You can probably tell it's made in Unity from the footage right now, like the lighting is just very, Unity-esque. The core gameplay is very similar to The Binding of Isaac with a randomly generated room-to-room dungeon crawling, with a shop and a boss on every floor. Paranautical Activity also features a mini-boss on every floor where you can also get items. So, Paranautical Activity has far less enemies than The Binding of Isaac, and I hate to kinda hold it to the same standard, because it's gonna be a pretty rough review because of how big of a fan of The Binding of Isaac I am. But, I mean, that's just the cost with making a similar game. So it's much easier to learn the enemy patterns in Paranautical Activity because there's so few variety. Although Paranautical Activity shares many things in common with The Binding of Isaac, it does have one prominent feature that sets it apart, which is guns and of course the first-person aspect, instead of the top-down Binding of Isaac. So Paranautical Activity has 5 base classes, all with their own starting weapons and stats. They also feature secondary weapons. I actually haven't figured out how to use those yet though. Setting itself aside from, like, just a kind of typical Binding of Isaac knockoff. This game has many features, but the majority of them are highly similar to The Binding of Isaac, so I don't really feel like I need to cover them. So this review is going to be a bit shorter than usual. Some just quick covers, like The Binding of Isaac, there's like when you kill a boss you get an item and there's a randomized pool, stuff like that. Just if you don't know, look at a review for Binding of Isaac and many similar things. So now on to phase 3 of the review, pros and cons. The pros of Paranautical Activity: it has guns, secondary weapons, those really, unlike Isaac, throw in kind of a new feel for the game. Also, first person definitely is much more immersive than a top-down. There's infinite hours of play theoretically because it is a roguelite game, meaning like you can't really progress in the game, you just keep going through randomly generated. Really similar to The Binding of Isaac, which I'm a huge fan of, so it basically shares many of the pros of The Binding of Isaac, which I don't feel like going over because there are quite a few. And then also there's a mechanic in it, which is usable trinkets. You can pick up items off the ground and they kind of go into an offside inventory, and you can use, you can only hold one at a time, but pressing Q you can use them and that'll give you a little boost. So that is another thing that sets it apart from just being a Binding of Isaac knockoff. So some cons of Paranautical Activity is there's not very much variety. If you do 3 runs you'll see all the same enemies, all the same bosses really. There's few variables in the form of enemies. The rooms do have a lot of variables though, and so far I haven't had many items that I've seen twice. The graphics, I'm just not personally a fan of Unity graphics very much, in the lighting. I don't think that's gonna change. I believe the creators enjoy that style. And then the music, it's pretty nice, like dubstep music going in the background, but it is on replay, the same song, so it does get pretty old until you're on like the much later floors where the music changes. So now for the final phase of the review, phase 4, overall thoughts and recommendation, whether or not I recommend it. So I personally wouldn't recommend this game for its price and its current state, but do of course keep in mind that it's still in early access and could improve greatly on some of the cons in the near future. It could also add some more pros. I mean, that's what early development is. It is just a beta, I believe. So although this game does have some good pros, and in a normal review those might outweigh the cons, because of the large similarities to The Binding of Isaac, I would much rather just recommend you buy The Binding of Isaac. I also believe they're just around the same price. I have had fun with this game. It is by no means a bad game. There's just a lot of area to improve for it. So, overall verdict, wait to buy the game until there are more updates for it. Maybe it'll get better. Just keep an eye out on the game, watch some other videos. I might post an occasional update on this game, just like a quick episode. So yeah, thanks for watching my first ever Lucky Looks At. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, a like is very much appreciated, and if you haven't already, please subscribe, and I will see you next time.